Imagine this scenario. You're parked out in the middle of nowhere all by yourself. You're in a national forest or super deep into the desert, and you get a knock at the door and they say it's law enforcement. What do? So no, this isn't deja vu. You haven't seen this video before. I did a video last week about a super critical security alert for everybody. I thought I was making it for RVers, but come to find out it can help anybody, whether you live in an RV or a traditional house. I did a little bit of not a reenactment, but I did a little bit of a sketch in that video about getting a knock on the door. It didn't really happen. I did it for dramatic effect to kind of tell the story. And a lot of you had a lot of comments and a lot of questions about what to do if someone knocks on your door and says they're law enforcement. So I wanted to do a follow-up video to that and talk about how to handle someone at your door saying they're law enforcement, saying they're doing a wellness check, how you should react, what you should do, and how to keep yourself safe. So I'm going to be going over that today, so stay tuned. What?
Someone called in your license plate, and we're here to do a wellness check.
Hey friendlies, I'm Carolyn. Welcome back to my life living in an RV. I have been living and traveling and working in an RV for almost 7 years. I've had my fair share of knocks at the door. I have been visited by law enforcement. I have been visited by rangers. I have had a lot of people come into my camp just to figure out what's going on or to give me information or to kick me out of a spot. I'll put a couple links to those videos at the end. I'll also put a link of the video about the security alert at the end and in the video description so you can check out that critical safety alert. Before we get started, do me a favor. If you like my videos, what are you waiting for? Click the button below to subscribe so you never miss a thing. And just because you think you subscribed once, double check because YouTube unsubscribes people. So in that video about the critical safety alert, I played out a scenario where you get a knock on the door. They say it's law enforcement. They want you to come out of the vehicle because they say they need to do a wellness check, which could happen, right? You maybe have been too long in a certain area. Locals are worried that maybe you're dead inside or whatever, but it could happen. So I saw a lot of comments. I saw a lot of fear. I just want to stress again that the world is not a big, bad, scary place, and that it's no coincidence that the people who do more fear less. Seriously, true story. The more you do, the less you fear, because I find that the most fearful people are the ones who are home watching a lot of TV, seeing worst case scenario played out on the news. So here is what I do. I mean, I am sitting in here, and part of the reason I love living in a Class C RV is because I have so many windows. So I can see pretty much all the way around my RV just sitting here working. Here's what I do. If a ranger pulls into my camping spot, and I'm always on the lookout, what's the #1 rule for being safe? Be aware of your surroundings. I'm constantly aware of my surroundings. I almost always know, because I walk every morning, who's within a mile of me. I know if rangers patrol the road. There's a lot I know just because I'm always aware of my surroundings. That doesn't mean I'm living in fear. It just means that I'm being aware so that I know what to expect and what not to expect, what might be out of the ordinary. So I'm thinking about a particular spot I had in Colorado last year. I was the only one out there. It was early in the season. I was pretty high in elevation. It was still pretty cool. And I was in a spot and I'm sitting here working. I hear a truck pull in and I saw a ranger truck. A ranger pulled in right in front of me. There was one driveway in and out, and he gets out of the vehicle. And here's what I normally do. I usually get out to greet them because I don't want them coming to my door. It's awkward for me to be standing in the door. I would rather meet them outside. I know that's raising a lot of red flags for a lot of you guys. This is what I've been doing in the 7 years I've been on the road, and it's never been a problem. Of course, I see the ranger. I see the official truck. I see the official plates. When they get out of their vehicle, they're in uniform. They carry a sidearm, right? They have a firearm. They have head-to-toe uniform on, and I've never had a problem doing that, just going out to greet them. But if you're unsure, what should you do? First of all, let me tell you my experience with both law enforcement and with rangers. Even if I don't go out to greet them, and there have been times where I've been not ready to greet them or whatever, they will not knock on your door. They'll usually kind of like linger outside. They don't usually approach your vehicle. So if somebody gets straight out of the vehicle and comes right to the door and starts banging on the door, that might be a little bit of a red flag. Especially rangers in public lands. They know that, especially if you're remote, you're wide open. They don't know what they might be walking into. And so just like a police officer on the side of the road, they proceed with caution when they're walking into your camp. And they do understand that I'm walking into someone's camp. They could be fearful, so they take their time. They assess the situation. They don't just exit the vehicle and come right up and start banging on the door. So if you do encounter someone who gets straight out of a vehicle, beelines to the door and starts banging on the door, that's a red flag. I think whether it's a police officer or a ranger. But here is what you can do. Someone comes knocking on your door and your spidey sense is ticking, ticking, ticking. Something doesn't feel right. Number one, of course, do not open the door. If your spidey sense is up, don't open the door. Like I said, my spidey sense has never been up with an official looking person coming into my camp. And so I haven't been afraid to greet them. But if you are afraid, if something just doesn't feel right to you, if something feels off, don't unlock the door, don't answer the door. If you're living in a van, go to the front and roll down the window just a little bit if you have to talk to them. Actually, you don't even really have to do that. Don't roll down your window all the way, and ask for ID. Ask for identification, ask for a badge. If they can't produce the badge, then you need to figure out what your next step is going to be. Oh, I left my wallet at home. No. Okay, then I'm going to call 911. And at that point, if they don't produce a badge, you need to go into survival mode. You need to go into, okay, how am I going to protect myself? This is not for real. Any official person is going to be able to produce a badge. Don't take any excuses. If they don't have a badge, there's something going on, okay? The second thing, in the scenario that I played out in my last video, I played a scenario where they were doing a wellness check, and they were insisting I get out of the vehicle, which really kind of makes sense, right? If they're doing a wellness check, if somebody called because they heard commotion or screaming, or they thought maybe I was being battered by a partner or something like that, they might ask me to get out of the vehicle to be able to inspect me, to make sure I'm okay. They might ask me to show ID, to prove that I am who I say I am. All of that stuff might actually happen. But that doesn't mean you have to give in to your spidey sense to accommodate whatever is going on with them. Here is what you do. Even if they do produce a badge, or especially if they can't, and your spidey sense is still telling you something is off, call 911. Call 911 and say, hey, I have a police officer at my door, or even I have a ranger at my door. They want me to open the door. They want me to come outside. I don't know if this person is for real. I'm scared. What should I do? Of course, if it's law enforcement, 911 should be able to dispatch to the appropriate agency to say, yeah, this person is legit or not. I'm not really sure how that would work for a ranger, but I suspect if the ranger isn't for real and you're on the phone with 911, they're gonna go, okay? And if they do go, make sure you get their license plate number. Make sure you get a good description. A good idea might be, if your spidey sense is up, grab your phone, take pictures of the license plate, take pictures of the truck, take pictures of the individual. And don't downplay your suspicions. When I made the video about my encounter with the guy on the Highway of Tears, it really wasn't until I started making the video weeks later that I realized how much danger I was really in that day. As women, we often downplay. We doubt ourselves. We doubt our gut, right? We've been taught. A lot of us have been taught. Oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're overreacting. Oh, you're just being dramatic again. And a lot of us have had those life experiences that cause us to downplay what's going on in our gut. Please don't. I have learned over the years that I've been in therapy, my gut is always right. My gut is always right. Always. I can still ignore those red flags, but my gut is always right. Always. It's got 100% track record, okay? So if your gut is telling you something is off, listen to it. Don't downplay it. Don't say, no, I'm being dramatic, or no, I'm being a scaredy cat, or I'm being this. Listen to your gut. Grab your camera, film everything. That Highway of Tears story, that guy, I downplayed it. So even when I went in my RV and locked to the door, I looked out the window at his car, didn't take any pictures. I could have. He was sitting right there in his car. So later, I did actually end up reporting him, much later, but I called the Hazleton Police, RCMP, and I did end up reporting the guy and gave as much information and description as I could. But if I had been in tune with my own process, if I'd been in tune with my own gut, and maybe for me, survival instinct is just survival. Right now I'm thinking about making myself safe, and I'm not thinking about proving this to anybody. That's also a thing too, right? For me, I have a very strong fight or flight and a very strong survival instinct just because of my life circumstances. And I think in that moment, I was more focused on survival than having to prove to anybody that it was real or turn them in and get information for someone else. That wasn't where my mind was at. And it wasn't until later that I was processing that I was like, shoot, I should have done that. It's really hard when you're in fight or flight mode to think about gathering evidence, right? And they even say, police officers always say that witnesses are horrible witnesses. We don't pay attention. We get what they're wearing wrong. We get their looks wrong. We get their height wrong. And I think part of that maybe awareness is shut down when we're just trying to figure out how to survive. But if you can remember that in the moment, but if you can get in the habit of grabbing your camera and documenting stuff just in case, worst case scenario, that would be a really good practice. But if you do get to the point where you have to call 911 because things just aren't feeling right, if it's a legitimate law enforcement officer, they're not going to mind. They're in no hurry. They have nothing to be afraid of. They're not going to run. They're not going to pressure you to open the door. They're not going to say, oh, don't call 911. They're going to say, okay, yes, ma'am, I understand. And they'll either stand outside, or you can even probably say, would you mind sitting in the car until law enforcement gets here and verifies? Or best case scenario, 911 verifies, yes, we have officer so-and-so on the scene. They did go out to do a wellness check. Ma'am, you're safe to open the door. If 911 verifies it, you're pretty safe in opening the door, because at that point you got a 911 office dispatch far away saying, yes, someone has been dispatched to make sure you're okay. So the chances of that being nefarious are almost impossible. So I hope this video helps give you some pointers for what to do in case of a situation like this. I have found over and over again that being prepared, hoping for the best, being prepared sometimes for the worst, not living in fear, not worrying, but arming yourself with the proper information and just thinking about these things ahead of time so that you're not caught in a so that you're not completely caught off guard and you get nervous and anxious and you don't know how to perform in the moment of something potentially dangerous happening. Does that make sense? So just have all the information, maybe even play act it out. Pretend you have a knock at the door. Pretend you're just sitting here. Pretend you're in bed. Pretend you have a knock on the door. What would you do? What would your process be? And maybe walk through the steps over and over and over again until it feels natural. And maybe part of that step be grabbing your phone, taking pictures, calling 911. I've said this before in other videos. It's always a good idea when you get to a new spot to drop a pin so that if you ever have to send your location off in an emergency, you already have it. You don't have to fumble. I've done videos before about how to share your location using Google Maps. I'll pin that video below so that you can revisit that, so that somebody always knows where you are in case of an emergency. It's not a bad idea if you're going to be spending time in a place for a while to get all the local police and sheriff in your speed dial in case you ever have to use it. The local ranger station because those are broken up by district, have that emergency number if there is one in your phone. So it is a really, really good idea to be prepared. And remember, I don't always practice what I preach. I have been doing this long enough that I'm not afraid most of the time. I'm not afraid until I have a good reason to be afraid. You know, like that truck that came in Arkansas a couple years ago, that scared me a little bit. You know, and really, honestly, there is not much out here to be afraid of, but you do have to be prepared. You do have to be smart. You have to listen to your gut, and you have to use your brain. Hope you found this video helpful. Thank you all so much for being here. If you're jonesing for more content, go ahead and check out Patreon in the link in the video description below. I post a lot of bonus real-time content, bloopers, and fun things like that. And plus, it's just a great community. So go ahead and check that out below, and I'll see you next time. In the meantime, be happy, be free, be kind, and be safe. Thanks for being here. Bye.